Hey everyone, it's Julian Meyer. I'm Managing Director at North Star Venture Partners. We're an early stage tech investment, buyout, and advisory group. And today we're doing something pretty cool. We're starting a new video series that we're putting out for primarily our portfolio companies and target portfolio companies, but also just for the general public and startup founders and entrepreneurs that are interested in learning more about the finance side of the business, primarily the venture capital side, but also learning more about just early stage finance in general. So if you're raising a friends and family round, an angel round, a seed round, we'll be doing multiple topics and videos on that. But also for later stage founders who are looking for different liquidity options, who are looking for different access to capital, who are trying to understand more about debt versus equity and other options that they may have available to them through the course of their business. So today we're going to be starting with, and the first few videos we're going to be focused around some just quick tips that you can put into practice right away as an entrepreneur. So today we're going to do 5 tips to better connect with and raise money from venture capitalists. So first and foremost, the number one tip that you have to keep in mind is that you have to know what your differentiator is. This is something that so many startup founders don't pay attention to, and it's mind-boggling to us. As an investment firm, we see a ton of pitch decks. On average, we're seeing between 40 and 50 a week. This is coming from partners, it's coming from LPs, it's coming from entrepreneurs themselves, it's coming from our website, it's coming from our partners' emails. Pitch decks are sent to us from all over the place. Now, while a pitch deck is great, we're going to talk about that in a second, the step before the pitch deck, what's most important is to know your differentiator. We are company X, and we solve problem Y better than anybody else in the marketplace because of reason Z. Okay, think about that. Go back if you have to and listen to that statement again, because that's the core of what gets an investor interested. If you can create that statement, if you can pitch that properly, that's what you can replace your elevator pitch with. The elevator pitch in our mind, folks, is dead. The elevator pitch itself, when you're taught to have a 30, 60, 90-minute pitch, that's fine. But what if you have one sentence in an elevator with a dream investor that can get them interested instantly? That's what that one sentence is. So go back, listen to that, write that down. And it's not a one-step fix. You're not going to get this right in one shot. This is kind of an ever-growing, ongoing project that you're going to have to work on constantly, not just as a founder, but with your whole team. It's kind of like a mission statement. So focus on knowing your differentiator, because that is what is going to pique any investor's interest, and right away they'll know whether or not they're a fit. Number 2, what you want to focus on, okay, is you want to know your pitch deck. You don't just want to put together a pitch deck. That's another common mistake that we see with entrepreneurs. Partially, the reason we think it stems from is because a lot of tech founders, a lot of technical founders, if you will, focus very heavily on the actual product that they build. And again, we're a technology investment firm, so we're a little bit different, we're a little bit skewed to that. That's the kind of decks that we see. But you really want to make sure that when you put together one of these pitch decks, you're not just copying some template off of Y Combinator or some template off of Techstars or whatever it is. Although there's great templates out there, and we're going to include one in the link. We're going to include a link to one in the description to this video, which you can just click below and find. Don't stop at just creating the deck. Know what you're pitching, meaning understand from a narrative standpoint, how are you going to pitch each slide so that each slide fits with the one before, and so that you tell this story that, just like any great storybook, has a beginning, a peak in the middle, and an end that makes people want more. Think of it like a movie. Think of it like any good book you've ever read. Think of it like any great TV series that you've binged on Netflix. There's all these high points that you want to hit because why? They draw emotion, but you also want to hit different inflection points that change the tone, that create this emotional connection to not just you, but to the company that you have. So don't just think about the content that's in the deck, think about the way that you're pitching. And that's what we mean when we say know your pitch. Practice it and see how emotional you can get people in the room, because emotional connections are the most powerful ones. And so as long as you have the right content in there, as long as you have the metrics, the statistics, and all that core stuff that's in there, you have to go one step beyond if you really want to improve your chances of extracting a check, which is what a pitch deck is typically designed for, is to extract a check. And that one step further is going to be finding that narrative and creating that emotional connection. So that's number 2. Our third tip, and this is one, again, and that's really what these tips are. These are tips that are overlooked by entrepreneurs. They're not tips that are, oh, go find this metric, oh, go talk to this person, oh, go create this size of round. There's the standard stuff. This is the stuff that most entrepreneurs don't pay attention to because they don't understand how the finance community works on this side of the table. And this one is actually really important. You have to research and qualify your investors as much as we research and qualify you. And this is like the best kept secret in the world of venture capital and in the world of private equity. In fact, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of colleagues that are angry at me for putting this video out. But the fact of the matter is I come from your side of the table. I spent close to a decade as a founder, and I never realized how important it is to actually qualify your investors. Now, what do I mean when I say qualify them? Well, from a research standpoint, it's pretty easy, right? You want to research, you want to go through, and you want to see what's a list of firms, what's a list of people that invest in this space. Who are the people that have made investments in this space, right? And maybe they didn't make investments, but they come from the space, they know the space, right? It's much easier to convert an investor that has familiarity with your space than it is to convert someone just because they have money, right? So from the research phase, that's step one. On the qualification phase, what you have to pay attention to is every time, think about it, every time we see a debt come across our side of the table, we're qualifying it. We're saying, oh, they're not a fit because they don't fit into this revenue threshold. Oh, they're not a fit because they're not in this vertical. Oh, they're not a fit because they don't have X amount of team members, right? And you might get a rejection just because of that, not because you're a bad company. Keep that in mind as well. But we spend all day long qualifying you guys, qualifying the entrepreneurs. Why wouldn't you do the same for us? Wouldn't it make for a better conversation on both sides of the table? Absolutely. So what you have to do, and there's very simple, easy, free ways to do this. There's databases such as Crunchbase. And if you're not familiar with Crunchbase, check it out. Okay, Crunchbase, compared to some of the other platforms that are out there for this type of data, is incredibly cheap and incredibly effective. You're talking about a $300 or $400 price point to get access to a list, to a database of all the different investors that have invested in your competitors, that have invested in companies that are in your vertical. I mean, what a powerful tool for $300 to $400 when you consider the fact that on average, founders are spending between $20,000 and $70,000 per round of finance that they're raising. So what you have to know when you're qualifying is two things. Number one, has this company invested in my vertical, in my space, in the last 24 months? That means that they're an active investor. That means that they have done a deal in your space recently, that they like the space, and that they are willing and able to put capital into your vertical, your space. Now you have to be careful. Right? One caveat there is that if they invest in your direct competitor, you may not want to pitch them because they may steal some ideas from you. Yes, folks, that does happen. They may steal some ideas from you and give that to your competitor. But you also want to hold your cards too close to the chest, because even if they invest in someone that's an indirect competitor, they may still want to invest in you. In fact, they may even help buy you out or walk you through an early acquisition to fold into that company that's in their portfolio. Right? So that's number one on the qualification piece. Number two is you really have to pay attention to, does this company still have money to invest? Right, that's the other piece. And this piece is a little bit more difficult to find. There's databases such as PitchBook, which will give you access to this information in the form of what's called dry powder, meaning how much capital the fund or the group has left to invest. But there's other ways to find that out, right? A great way, like we were just talking about, is the 24-month threshold. If you go through Crunchbase and these people haven't made an investment in 24 months, and you cross-reference that over how big the overall size of their fund is, and then you calculate how many deals they've done and how much has been put into each deal, and that you can do for free on Crunchbase. Obviously, a lot more work than PitchBook, because PitchBook just spits out the number, but you can do it on Crunchbase. You can then calculate how much dry powder they have left. So if you go through and you calculate that number and you say, okay, they have roughly 8 million left, and you're doing a $5 million round, think about it, folks. You may not be a great fit, especially if your average check size, which is another thing you can calculate, right? Number of deals divided by total capital invested within that fund or that vehicle will give you the average check size. If their average check size is at $1 million and you're raising $5 million, you're not going to be a fit. Don't reach out. It's going to be a waste of time, right? And they may lead you along because they may just want to see what's under the hood. We do that all the time. But you as the entrepreneur have to have the responsibility to calculate that number, to understand these metrics, and to qualify these investors as much as we're qualifying you on our side of the table. So pay attention to all that. The fourth piece, and this is really important. When you get to the stage, you've done everything right. You've pitched your differentiator, you found your pitch deck rather, you know your narrative, you found your qualified investors who made the outreach, and you're lucky enough to get some meetings booked. If an investor is booking a 30-minute meeting with you and you're spending 30 minutes talking about just one piece of your business, the technology or your background or why your team is so great or all the synergies, the verticals you have, you already lost the game. You lost the game. You should be getting the investor interested within the first 5 minutes of the call by saying a couple of key things. Number one, you want to say why you're such a promising company, right? And this goes back to your differentiator. Number two, you want to talk about the growth you have and what you can do with their capital. Number 3, we want to talk about the time horizons, when you need to raise your next round of capital by, and who's already participating in it. With those 3 things right there, if you can spit those 3 things out in 5 minutes, I promise you folks, the rest of the stuff is water under the bridge. It's stuff that comes up in due diligence. And this goes into my 5th point, right? Not rambling, which was the 4th point. Not rambling and getting right to the point within those first 5 minutes of saying, hey, here's why we're excited, here's where we're at, and here's what we're going to need this money by. And then combining that with talking finance the rest of the call, right? Think about the person on the other side of the table. Do I really, honest to God, know what you mean when you're saying, well, we created this algorithm that does X amount of data processing in X amount of hours, and because it's this many milliseconds faster than this, it's going to create a much better AI result, and our BI as a result is going to be much better than this company X, Y, and Z. You've already lost me. I'm bored to death because I've been pitched these things left and right, and I can't determine what's real from what's not real anymore. So what's real is finance. So the 5th point is talk finance. Understand the basic principles of what an investor looks for. A great resource for this, and again, it'll be a link in the description of this video, is a book called Venture Deals by Brad Feld. This is the quintessential Silicon Valley founders, startup founders, entrepreneurs in general manual to understanding what goes on our side of the table. Even if you don't read through the whole book, you can skim to certain chapters, you can just go through it as a quick speed read, and you'll find so much powerful information that'll change how you think about how you're actually supposed to pitch an investor. And so if you combine all these 5 things, number 1, knowing your differentiator. Number 2, knowing your pitch and your narrative. Number 3, researching and qualifying your investors. Number 4, not rambling on these calls and getting the investors interested right away in the first 5 minutes. And number 5, being able to speak finance, being able to speak the language that's being spoken on the other side of the table. Your chances of winning that check, your chances of walking away with capital increase exponentially compared to everybody else, compared to the 40 or 50 that come across our desk each week. I promise you, you'll see that not just at our firm, but with any other firm that you're pitching. So on that final note, folks, there's one other bonus tip that we want to give. There's a group that we work with called Intersection Capital out of California. It's run by a gentleman named Warren Claff. He's got a great new book out right now. It's called Flip the Script. But on top of that, his original book, Pitch Anything, is a quintessential classic for any entrepreneur who wants to win back the power of pitching in a boardroom. Highly recommend that you pick a copy of it up. Link is in the description of our video below. Again, I'm Julian Meyer, Managing Director at North Star Venture Partners. Thanks so much for watching.